This is Mrs. Heath recording lesson 3.3. Our unit 3 is on geometry, and our first lesson has to do with exploring angle measures. As you can see from our friend here helping us draw an angle, and we are going to be learning how to measure those. So let's get started. We are using website of the day, I guess, and we're going to find angles for polygons, and we're actually going to be using IXL. So let's get started. It says, what is the measure of the missing angle? Now, hopefully you've all recognized that this is a triangle, and triangles have a certain degree of measurement. In every triangle measures the same exact total degrees. So if I were to measure this angle, or if I'm to try to figure out the missing measurement, the first thing I would tell you is every triangle has 180 degrees. So all triangles, no matter if they're scalene, isosceles, or equilateral, will total 180 degrees. So if I had to add up my 118 and my 30, I get a total of 148 degrees. So I need to find the missing. So then I would say, what is 180 take away 48? And that would leave me with 32. Let's see if we're correct. And submit. And it says we did it right. Okay, so it says, what is the measure of the missing angle? So this time we have 4 different angles that we are trying to measure. We have a 40, a 62, and a 102. Oh, I'm sorry, 62, 40, which is 102, and then 37 for a total of 139 degrees. So how am I going to figure out that missing angle? The angle is outside here. Do you see that? And it is definitely obtuse. If I look at how it follows along here, it's an obtuse angle. So I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say that I need to take 360, because most shapes are always totaling 360. So I'm going to take a guess, and if I total them up, I get about 139 degrees. And if I were to take that from, if I am to take that from 360, I would say I'm going to get about 221. Now, will that work out? That's the next thing that we need to understand, and it is, because it does total 360 degrees, just like a circle totals 360 degrees. Again, we have a triangle, and I told you triangles always total 180 degrees. Okay, so if I total up 122 and 33, I get 155. So I would want to take 180 minus 155, and hopefully you kind of can do that in your head, but that would give us a measurement of 25, because remember, they always total 180. Okay, so let's try this last one together here, and we're going to add up all of our degrees. I have 138, 98, and 55, and that gives me 291. So now I need to find the difference between 360 and 291. And I'm going to say that's about 69 degrees if I add them and subtract it from 360. I'm going to say that is 69 degrees. And I did great. So awesome. Okay, so we will work some more on these. So we'll spend some more time in class talking about angles. I love this little guy over here. He seems a little overwhelmed, or a little gal, and it says, if I'd known they wanted me to use all this information, I would never have asked for it. Kind of a cute little saying. So our math message today says, how might you use this figure to prove that the measure of each angle of a square is 90 degrees? Well, let's take a look. What can I tell already about this? If you see the lines in the middle, what do each of these lines form? What do each of them form? I'm hoping if you looked in this circle right here, you can see that each of these forms 90 degrees. I mean, that would be my hope, that you see that they're all 90 degrees in the center here. 90 and 90 and 90. So it forms 90 degrees. So that would tell me that the total measurement of a circle would be 360 degrees. I hope you're with me right now. All right, so let's scroll down here, and I want to show you this little message. And it says a circle has 360 degrees. This circle is divided into fours. 360 divided by 4 equals 90 degrees. The right angles in the figure show 90 degrees. And that's kind of what we just talked about. So a circle is a total of 360 degrees. I want to take a look at this right here. So, oops, sorry. So this says, use the figure to the right to help you think about the total number of degrees in a circle. Then use what you know about angles and the total number. So it says, then use what you know about angles and the total number of degrees in a circle to answer the following questions. So, how many degrees are in a circle? And we do know that already. We do know that there are 360 degrees in a circle. Oops, sorry, cut off my line. And then when you put in the degrees, you just use a little circle to thing. What is the measure for each of the angles in a circle? And we just talked about that too, that they each equal 90 degrees. So we're going to put in 90. Okay. If a circle is divided into 8 equal parts, what is the number, or what is the degree measure for each of the 8 angles formed? So let's think about that. So if it's divided into 8 parts now, so my circle has more parts, so I'm going to have 8 parts. What do you think that measure would be? I want you to think about that, and I want you to write that down as part of your answer when you come back to class. What do you think the answer is? Oh, and let me get rid of these little 90s down here. Got my eraser. Oops, wrong one. Need my eraser. There we go. Okay, so then it says, if a circle is divided into 12, what would that be? So I want you to do these last few on your own, and we'll discuss them in class, because I think it's really important that you do some thinking as well. So 8, 12, and if it's divided into 6, what is the degree measure? If a circle is divided into equal parts so that the angles have a... Okay, so I said if a circle is divided into equal parts so the angles have a degree measure of 120, how many angles would be formed? And finally, it says if a circle is divided into 360 equal parts, what is the degree measure of each of the 360 angles? So I want you to think about it. So number your paper, 3 through 7, and let's see if you can write down the answers for number 3 through 7. All right? Do your best. Remember, you can pause at any time. All right, let's move on. It says finding polygon angle measure. Since a circle is always 360 degrees, and because a circle can always be drawn around any point, we can use circles to measure the angles in a polygon. So it's circled each of the polygons as to what we're measuring. Now, if I look right here at this angle, and I'm trying to decide, is it obtuse or acute? And that's something we're going to talk about more. Same thing with this angle and this angle. Now, if I am to look at my yellow angle here, and if this were straight and not curved, it would be a little different also. If I look at this angle, I can tell it is an acute angle, the red one, because it is less than, right here, it is less than 90 degrees. Okay, now on the other hand, the purple angle, I can tell it's obtuse, and it is definitely more than 90 degrees. So that tells me it's obtuse. And the other one, this tells me, this line tells me this could have been a 90-degree angle, but because of the curve, it's going to be probably a little less. But if this went straight out, I would know this is a 90-degree angle. And also I can tell right here in the corner that this is a 90-degree angle by the way it is formed. So I have a 90 or a right angle, I have an acute angle, less than 90, and I have an obtuse angle, which is more than 90 degrees. All right, so let's move on. We're going to talk about classifying angles. This is identify angles as acute, right, or obtuse, and I just talked about that. And it says using a protractor, you can classify an angle. Again, very true, okay? So we can definitely identify angles by their measure and by knowing what an angle looks like. So I think that's also very important. All right, let's talk about the definitions of angles. So over here it says an angle that measures 90 degrees, angle that measures less than 90, and an angle that measures greater than 90. And hopefully you know that because we just talked about them. One that is exactly 90 degrees is a right angle. Okay. And one that measures less than 90, hopefully you all know, that is acute or acute angle. Acute angle is a little teeny angle and it looks kind of cute. Good way to remember it. And a big one is obtuse. So we know that it measures more than 90 degrees and less than 180. So let's check. And we did them all right. So very good. Awesome job. Okay, let's move along then. On this one, I want to help measure, or not measure, but put them in order by the type of angle they are. Now at the bottom, I have a bunch of different angles listed. And with these angles, we can put them into the right category. So is it right, is it acute, or is it obtuse? So let's start by moving a few angles. I know this little guy is acute because he measures less. I know that this one is really stretched out and big, so I know he's an obtuse angle. This little guy is cute or acute because if this line over here was standing straight up, I know it'd be right, but it's not. It's less than that. This little guy is acute, right? Less than 90. This little guy is less than 90. This one here is upside down, but I still can see that it forms a right angle. And what about this one? This guy too looks like he forms a right angle. The last three, I know this one is a little bit bigger than a right angle because I can tell that if you drew a line straight up here, oops, I'm going the wrong direction, sorry. If I went straight up from here, this angle here would measure greater than 90. Same thing with this one, a little bit bigger, and this one's quite a bit bigger, more like our orange one. So there we go. Again, categorizing angles, making sure we understand the difference in our angles, because that's really important. All right, moving on. It says look at each angle. Determine what type of angle it is. Drag the magnifying glass over it to see the angle value. So if I look at this angle right here, this first one, I can tell that it is definitely more than 90. Okay, and it's not a right. So if I drag my over here, 160 degrees. So I do know that I am correct on that one, that it is obtuse, and that yes, it is more than 90 and less than 180. Now this guy over here, nice little cute tiny angle, so I'm going to go with acute, and I'm correct. And that little guy only measures 9 degrees. So again, learning how to categorize angles, very, very important. So let's go look over here. Again, I believe this little one here is acute, and I'm right. 30 degrees, less than 90, more than 0, okay? Over here, I can tell by the tip. If it went straight up here, again, it would be 90. But I can tell by the bend, it's definitely more than 90 degrees or an obtuse angle. And it does measure 110 degrees. And our last angle, that's a nice angle right at the corner. And what do we call those angles? We call those angles right angles. Oops, and I'm taking apart here my little angle. But I'm going to move my, my handle. Oops, got to grab the right thing here. And that measures 90 degrees, and I was correct that it is a right angle. So again, remember, a lot of times by looking at an angle, you can tell what it is, all right? Not always, but most of the time you can. Sometimes you need to do a little measuring because it could be really close to a right, like 89 degrees. But most of the time we can tell if they're acute, obtuse, or right. All right, finally, we're moving on to using a protractor. And I realize this lesson's a little bit longer, but I did want to show you how to use a protractor before you get started. So it says, if we watch this, it says a protractor can be used to measure an angle. Watch this animation, then use the same technique on the next page. So I want you to watch this as I measure this angle, and what do they do? Notice how they're turning it to line up one side with 0, right at the point. And then they can tell the measurement, okay? So let's try that one more time. Let's take a look again. They're going to move the angle up so they can see it. Turn their protractor, put it right on there with the dot. Rotate the protractor, lines up with 0. And that angle there would be 40 degrees. And we know it's acute, so we know we use the numbers, the smaller numbers, not the larger. All right, moving right along to our last one. let's take a look at how we measure angles. So if I move this over here, and I might want to move my angle actually, but if I move this here and I line it up, this one's really nice because I can line it up right at the vertex, and the vertex is where the two lines come together. And I know this is an obtuse angle, so I'm going to go above and use the bigger lines. And I know I'm going to use the bottom here on this one. It would be between 140 and 150. So I'm going to go with like 144 degrees because that to me looks like what it would be. So I want to go over here and write down 144 degrees. And hopefully you can see that with me. Now, let's move our protractor down to this one. Hopefully we all know what this kind of angle is. But again, lined up my vertex, put it right where they meet. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to write this is a right angle or 90-degree angle. Now one thing you can notice about a 90-degree angle is it always has that little box there. That little box represents a 90-degree angle. All right, let's measure our last angle then. And we can put it right here again where our vertex is. I know it's less than 90 degrees because I just have the one above me. Okay, so it's less than 90. If I use the smaller numbers, I go along, oh, right there at 80 degrees. I can see that it's 80. And how do I know which set to use? Again, if it's more than 90, I use the bigger numbers. If it's less than 90, I always have to use my littler numbers. Okay, let's reveal our answers and see how we did. Okay, so as far as this kind of angles, we have an obtuse, a right, and an acute angle. So we did that part right. And then we did all the measuring. So hopefully you were able to see how to use a protractor. Now we'll spend a lot more time in class working with protractors as well. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on how to do that and an introduction to geometry and measuring angles. Geometry can always be a little bit tricky, but remember, just take your time and ask a lot of questions. Hopefully you were able to get the problems done on numbers 3 through 7, I believe. And you were feeling more secure with how to measure and how to define different kinds of angles with acute, obtuse, and right or 90 degrees. Thanks for being such a good audience. Have a good evening.